Welcome to this week's episode of Insight. During this week's show, we're going to focus entirely on the 2-year anniversary of Aliyev and Erdogan's war of aggression against the people of Armenia and Artsakh. I will start this broadcast with our glorious dead who gave their lives fighting multiple genocidal armies and their terrorist proxies. What can we say about them? To quote Shakespeare's Hamlet, upon such sacrifices, the gods themselves throw incense. Our heroes died for a people that deserved their sacrifice, and a state that certainly did not. They died for a historic nation worthy of their sacrifice, and commanders and a political class not worthy of them. One of the most striking things about the war that I recall was the nightly reports that we used to get at night about the people that we lost that day or that were being reported lost that day. And you will see constantly these two dates, 2001, 2002, which were the birth dates of half the people that we lost in this war. And obviously these were boys in many ways, but I can tell you they all died like men. And may we all go to hell if we ever forget them or their families. So how must we honor them, our heroes? First, by standing with their wounded comrades and their families, in solidarity and supporting them in every way possible and not in toasts. I will ask all of you to do something very practical. In our description part of our videos on different social media sites, we're going to have a few charities that we'll ask you to go to and to donate to. It's Hazara Plus and Wounded Heroes. There are many others doing it, but those are the two that I'm going to highlight. So I would ask you to do something to sacrifice to help the people that we need to help and stand by them in real terms. Obviously, patriotism in any way must hurt and it must cost us something. Furthermore, we will honor our heroes by building a garrison state that's capable of defending the homeland that they fought and died defending. We will honor them by always speaking the truth. We will honor them by not giving in to irrational fears and the intrigues of charlatans. Most importantly, we will honor them by building a just society and by working night and day to do the 10,000 acts, the small and big acts that take in building a prosperous, democratic, secure Armenia and Artsakh. And finally, to never again send an army into battle to fight a 21st century war with 20th century weapons and 19th century bravery. Now we're going to move on to, in very real terms, where we actually stand today, 2 years after the end of this conflict, or actually the start of this conflict. First one, the reality is that this war has not ended. And the events of previous weeks, as far as the invasion of Armenia proper itself, prove that this war has not ended. We are in a permanent state of war, and that's what we should prepare for, and that is the condition that we need to understand we're living under. Second thing is, neither has the goals of the regime in Baku, which has always been the same. And what is that? It's actually two things. One, an Artsakh that is ethnically cleansed of Armenians, and they will not stop or wait until they accomplish that goal. And secondly, is to have an Armenia that is weak, incapable of defending itself and living at the whims of the gangster regime in Baku. And this is something that we can never allow to stand. We must clearly understand what's coming in the next 3 years. The primary goal of the regime in Baku is not to allow the current situation to become the status quo. They want ethnic cleansing and they want it now. They do not want any kind of a formal, peaceful situation or settlement in the Artsakh Republic. And what does this mean in real terms? It means that they will do everything, one, to terrorize people whenever they get the opportunity to flee Artsakh and to leave it behind. And most likely, almost certainly, regardless of the Russians' intentions to leave or not, to ask them to leave in 2025 to cause a political crisis that will essentially affect this constant program of fear and intimidation and gangsterism, which is what they have been about, and this is what they've been doing in the past 2 years. And frankly, this is something that the only response to by our media and the civilized world is to create a legal UN mandate to defend the people of Artsakh from genocide. And today, the people in Artsakh are actually in more risk of genocide than any other group of people in the world. And as difficult as it may be politically to do this, the legal case is there, and we need to make it, and we need to make it vigorously, and we need to enforce our will on them and on the world in every way possible. We must also understand that aggression by the enemy will not stop until we've strengthened ourselves to a point where aggression is more risky to regime survival than peace. Once Aliyev understands that equation, then he will act accordingly and in the manner that we want him to act in. The reality is that the first, second, and third agenda of our state and society and the diaspora has to build the garrison state. Every aspect of society needs to be viewed and acted upon from a national security angle. If we want peace, then we must think of war, plan for war, prepare for war, dream of war at night, and wake up the next morning and repeat the same cycle. All of this until we have the strength, politically and militarily, to impose peace on the regime in Baku that is certainly not interested in peace. We will close this show with reading the names of the 19 confirmed civilians and POWs that were murdered by the Aliyev regime and her terrorist proxies. Now, why are we doing this? Because I think it's important to put names and faces to all of these victims, including our POWs, and for people not to know them as statistics, but to know them as individuals. I'm going to start with a list of civilians that were murdered by the Aliyev regime. Edward Shakedelian, Arsen Kharakhanyan, Benik Hacopian, Elena Hacopian, Sergik Vartanyan, Ella Vartanyan, Gennady Petrosyan, Yurik Asrian, Misha Movsesyan, Anahit Movsesyan, Nina Davtyan, and Misha Malkomyan. Now I'm going to move to the servicemen that were murdered, the POWs that were illegally murdered by the Aliyev regime. Eric Mkhitaryan, Gagik Mkhitaryan, Araik Bogosyan, Vartkes Ghazaryan, Yuri Adamyan, Artur Mamelyan, and Narek Babayan. When I was just sitting back thinking about what does this awful list mean, it actually means one thing, that in reality there's no price to be paid for killing an Armenian, or an Armenian citizen, or Armenian anywhere. That's the reality. Our collective job as a state, as a people, as a nation, and a diaspora is to put a price on the life of every Armenian everywhere in the world. And that starts in Artsakh. In close, it's time to wake up from our stupor and the shock of the past 2 years and get to work. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode of Insights.
Then out spake brave Horatius, captain of the gate, to every man upon this earth death cometh soon or late, and how can man die better than facing fearful odds for the ashes of his fathers, the temples of his gods?